personal thoughts on the Bible. I I think it is a book of believers at the time that it was written. I think there's a piece of the story that is missing to us, which is to say that I think Jesus probably existed, was crucified by the Romans, and at some point, somebody or some group of people decided to turn what was a failed prophecy in a savior who did not survive the Romans and twist the story into something that would bring bring that forward, sort of rescue the lost the bad ending.
Well, I think it came at just the perfect time, and if it wasn't the right time, it wouldn't have survived. But it did because of the timing, and a large part of it was like the Roman Empire was vast at the time, and Rome had lots of different deities, and it's really hard to get people unified under all these different deities because they all have their different ideas of how things will be and stuff like that. So it was Constantine, I think, recognized this fact that, hey, if we get everyone united under a singular belief system, it'll be easier to control and manipulate people.
I wonder about that because from what I read, I read a little bit of it about the Roman history at the time, and it was that Constantine was starting to lose grip on the the empire, and he sort of changed horses because Christianity was becoming popular, and I don't know if that was adding to
Yeah.
his woes because he was getting people fighting against the empire because he wasn't Christian or the Romans weren't Christians. So he just decided to change horses and sort of ride the mandate of heaven on take that up on his team.
Yeah, I think there was something of that nature to it. I don't know. I'm not a historian, but it's got to be. To me, it makes sense that there was some reasoning there of it's easier to have a singular God than it is multiple gods within a society from a rulership perspective.
So do you think that was just because in terms of thinking about was it the right time? You say it was like it was time for it. Um,
Well, if the same story happened now, it there's be too much recording and stuff like that. If it happened much earlier, and it could have happened much earlier, but the word wouldn't have spread wide,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so all this kind of leads to the point where there's not there's just enough people who can write and record things down to have some record of it, but not enough to have too much record of it. And so, 80 years later, someone can write in the story that this person did, walked on water or fed, 5,000 people with a single loaf of bread or, whatever story. And no one can refute it because no one was there, or anyone who's there isn't doesn't even read that story. I mean, it doesn't really get distributed for like 20, 30 years later and stuff. And by the time it gets around, no one who was actually there at the event can say, well, no, that's not wrong. He didn't do that.
yeah. Well, yeah, we certainly forget. That's the thing I was saying or trying to get to is that I think we have missing pieces of the story. I mean, Islam came along, and I know they were sort of like a chapter later than the Bible, but they if the Bible had not been written, if Christianity wasn't a thing, if they were still with the Roman gods or something similar after the empire fell, Islamic religion creators, if you want, could have created a religion kind of just like Mormonism did or something, sort of make up their own revelation and go from there. So I'm not quite convinced on the inevitability of it at that time, or at least I'd stretch the scale out. Welcome, Terry. What's on your mind?
I want to know why you're an atheist if all evidence points to God being real or true.
Well, because all evidence doesn't. But what evidence do you think that does? Let's go. Let's start there.
Stronger marriages and less mentally ill people.
Longer marriages?
Yeah,
Did you say?
yeah. And
Um,
having less kids out of wedlock.
well, those are cultural, societal things. They don't really relate to the existence of a creator God.
What they do. God's a cultural and societal thing. You can't live in a godless, degenerate society and produce God-filled people. It doesn't work like that.
Humanity has been around for 300,000 years.
Sure.
Jesus is 2,000 years old. Of course, the Old Testament is what 1,500 BC or so. So we lived a long time without God concepts even.
Okay. No one's debating that.
Yeah.
But
Uh,
you asked me for evidence, and I gave you evidence, and
I
I
think
want to
it's
hear what you think.
yeah. I think it's a very big logical jump to say that having longer stable, I don't know if they're stable, but longer marriages makes it more likely to believe in a supernatural
And
creator.
less mental illness, which is a big one.
Is there less mental illness?
Yeah, less depression, less anxiety, less yeah.
That's true. Yeah, the depression and anxiety, that is true. I have read some of the psychology about that. Because when you've got cognitive dissonance of things that are uncomfortable to you, and if you're the type of person who is a fear-based thinker, it is comforting to have some of that fear taken away by having a belief that, let Jesus take the wheel and things like that. So yeah, there is that. But
So do you think someone that's in the military
that's
that believes in Jesus is a weak-minded individual and they just can't grasp how hard and difficult life is? People that have seen the worst, like Dr. Paul McKilling. Do you know who that is? A Navy SEAL and a doctor.
no.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about him?
I
Hard
I
Christ
don't I don't
believer.
know. Tell me about him.
Well, I just told you about him. Ex-Navy SEAL, now is a physician, practicing still, and he believes he's a Christian nationalist. And you think that he can't deal with the real world, so he lets God take the wheel. Seems like he's dealing with the real world quite fine.
Yeah, it
I'm
seems like he
not
would be
seeing
if
how
he's a
this
Navy SEAL. I mean,
God
that's
exists.
just the broad psychology. So when I talk about stuff like that, I'm referring to the population level findings. So you're gonna find variations to that all over the place.
Yeah, you mean like success and how that plays a factor, like how religious communities are more successful in all aspects.
They're not
Less
They're
high
not in
not.
school
all aspects.
dropouts,
They're
What's
less.
they're
the
they're successful
correlation
in
does not
some
cause it?
aspects and worse in others. The countries with the most religious practices have worse social outcomes from infant mortality to medical death rates and things like that, lifespans. Um,
No one's talking about Islam here.
I wasn't talking about Islam. I didn't say Islam.
What
Um,
what religion are you talking about then?
all
What are
religions
these countries?
versus no religion.
So you're just grouping every religion together. You can't really do that.
Well, okay. So you've got no.
I mean,
If
you
you look at
can, but
the Pew studies
It's really
that do comparative religious statistics, you'll see Christianity, Islam, Hinduism, blah blah blah, and then you'll see atheism, right? Non-believers, and they compare all of those. And the countries with the least religion, which is the number of non-believers, have all those other things.
what
Which
you mean, like the United States, like a secular humanist country that's like
No, the United
has the
States
most
is actually
population
more religious
of mentally
than
ill
is
children and
typical.
youth and young adults, millennials,
The,
and Gen X.
the United States is more religious than is typical for
It's
a
actually not at all.
yeah. If you look at the places like northwestern Europe, they are more culturally advanced than the United States in terms of all those metrics. we had been par with them. We had been a world leader probably up to maybe 1950s, 1960s, maybe all the way up to 1980s. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Europe.
Yeah,
Europe.
and it has because Europe obviously had to
Only
had a
some
number of decades to recover
are
from
very
World War II.
Christian, and those societies are the most peaceful societies.
But he just explained to you like
could you hear me?
that's not the reality of things, Terry.
Well, it is, because if you look at those European countries that he mentioned, like you could say Iceland or even Poland nowadays, you can see that these are some of the most safest countries on earth, and they have some of the best Christian architecture, some of the biggest and best looking churches, and some of the highest church attendance. Like in Krakow and Poland, I visited them. In
Right,
America, there's McDonald's every 5 miles. There's a church every 5 miles.
Just having big churches and churches that at some point the country spent or the local population spent a lot of money building and stuff does not make that country or region religious.
They were built already. They've been protected. They've been protected from Islamic extremists. Like in Poland, they haven't let one illegal immigrant in for over.
You're dropping a little bit, Terry.
Architecture has been burned down.
Yeah, you gotta check that connection, man.
So Poland, I didn't know about Poland, so I was looking it up. Religious breakdown of Poland is primarily Roman Catholic, with smaller groups of Orthodox, Protestant, and Jewish people. The most common religion is Roman Catholic. The most common religion in Poland is Roman Catholic, with 71% of the population. Let's see.
Sure. They believe Jesus is God.
Yeah.
And these are some of the safest countries to live on. Best countries, best everything. So, I think that speaks for itself. Quality of life speaks to truth.
Well, the countries with the highest quality of life, the highest people being satisfied, the highest, everything else are not religious countries.
Yeah. They're all European countries with high religious architecture and high religious societal implications.
Religious architecture is irrelevant.
Yeah,
no, it's not.
Is the architecture
no, because now you're denying the environment you live in.
I'm not really tracking here.
Well, religious.
I know you're not tracking, and let me make it make sense for you. The environment you live in determines your outcome to a great extent, and if you don't believe in that, you don't believe in science.
Terry, religious architecture, I would think,
if you put
reflects dominantly the
let me tell you something. If you put a giraffe in a small shed, it's not going to grow to its full height.
Terry, let me just say this. Religious architecture is going to represent dominantly the period of time that it was built in. That's going to be the greatest influence in that period of time. So to say that
it's gonna represent a strong Christian society is what it represents. It represents nationalism, which is healthy. Christian nationalism at that.
Do you think an area that has
different?
Terry,
that's not strong for a society. What's up?
Terry, do you think a region that is no longer religious, was religious for a long time, and is no longer religious anymore, or has a low rate of religiosity, is going to go through and tear down a historic building?
Let him finish his sentence. Go ahead, Rob.
Do you think they're going to go through and tear down a very old historic building?
He just said, like, what? I don't even know what he said. He don't even know what he said.
If he said religiosity, he meant religiosity. So just give him a break on a small mistake, okay? Ralph, do you want to
rephrase it? It's he just made it so much more complicated. Just rephrase it.
Will you stop talking so I can speak, Terry?
Yeah, just rephrase it.
So do you think a place that has lower religion rates than they used to have, and lower religion rates than that's in the U.S., is going to decide to tear down a 300-year-old church building because they're no longer that religious?
What even is that question? I don't know, maybe
You're claiming that
maybe some
architecture.
random psycho will throw a Molotov cocktail at an ancient building. I mean, maybe. I don't know, bro. Question.
Well, the question is, you're claiming that architecture indicates how religious a area is, and it doesn't, because these are
No,
historic
I'm saying
buildings. They are
environment
not going to go
matters
down
and how your
and
society
tear down these
functions.
historic buildings. That
Okay,
is,
look at America. Everything's brutalism. Everything is brutalism architecture. Mental illness is at an all-time high. There's
200-year-old
gay pride flags at the
country.
White House.
What do you mean by
Everything is disgusting to look at.
what's
And your
brutalism, Terry?
environment
What do you mean by
breeds your
brutalism?
outcome to a great extent.
Terry, what do you mean by brutalism?
I think it's an ugly, disgusting architecture design, and it makes you depressed. It's what they used in prisons. It was the blueprint for prisons in the 1930s to the 50s.
Just like blank square,
Brutal, and now we use it for schools. My college is all brutalism.
blank square stucco. and
Disgusting
stuff
to
like
look
that.
at.
Yeah, nothing special about it.
I like the little
But,
building.
but America is one of the most religious
everything
countries.
is good looking in Europe. Everything.
But America is one of the most religious countries out there.
It's really not at all. It's less than 50%. It's like 53% Christian, if that. And these people just say they're Christian on a poll.
Well, come on, you got to go with the polls. I mean, you don't know what's in other people's heads any better than we do. So you've got to go with what the polls say.
You definitely do by the
that's
way
the
your
best we
society is
have.
functioning.
So do you know what
It's
the
not
no
the best we
true
have. The best we
Scotsman
have is
fallacy
evidence
is?
of outcome. How do you guys not see the evidence in the outcome of a non-religious or a sacrilegious society or a secular humanist society? It's a
Terry,
degenerate outcome. People do whatever they think is right, and that's not good.
that's not the way it works.
It's not secular humanism, though. Not whatever.
Terry,
What is secular humanism then?
Terry, do you know what
You're
the
an
no true
independent moral
Scotsman
agent if
fallacy
you're a
is?
secular humanist. Listen, I'm not gonna do this fallacy. Just, bro, talk
Do
to
you
me
know
like a
what the
human
no
being.
true Scotsman
I'm
fallacy
not doing
is?
this debate. I'm not a debater guy. I just like to talk.
It's not about a debate.
I
I'm
don't
just
know. I
asking
don't
you, do
care
you know what
either
it
about your
is?
fallacy, to be real.
Because you're claiming
I don't
people in the
care
U.S. are
about.
not
I want to
religious.
talk about the top
Ralph, don't test him. Just tell him.
atheism and
Tell
how
him. Make your
European
point by
architecture helps
telling
in
him.
environments and how brutalism ruined Western society.
He just wants to preach.
Yeah. So
Terry,
what was your background, Terry? How did you get to this
No,
opinion?
I don't want to listen to your fallacy.
Terry, what was your background? How
Well, I
did you
got to
get
this
to
opinion by years of being brought up in an atheist household.
Really?
I was brought up in an atheist household, and my brother was an atheist too, and he's older than me, and I would say he's smarter than me. He's an electrical engineer. I'm also an electrical engineer. So, you know, I think it's everyone's an atheist around me. I'm not an atheist because I've seeked out God and I've found him, and I believe to be true. Maybe some of the stories aren't completely true. Maybe maybe Noah's Ark wasn't fully, but you can take a message out of that. It's not about taking it so literally. It's a book of great knowledge, and people fail to recognize that. Stupid people fail to recognize that, and it really makes society better. And that's what the evidence says.
Do you think it is a book of how do you separate the true stories from the analogy stories and metaphors?
It's not. I don't know. You have to read the book. You have to read the book.
I'm asking you because I'm trying
It's
to
a book.
understand
At the end of the day, it's a book.
At the end of the day, it's a book. Is it? So it's a book is enough to make you believe in a resurrection?
No, a relationship with God is, and the unbelievable evidence that God is real. And I already have explained that. Less mentally ill people. I'm less mentally ill than all my family members. I know a lot of. I'm not gonna get into it, but I know people that are on SSRIs and all that shit. 1 in 4 women aged 33 to 50 or 35 to 55 that are divorced are on SSRIs.
Mm-hmm.
What does that say about society? And they're not Christian women.
You don't think?
I can tell you,
women
it
take
means that
SSRIs?
degeneracy is. I think
You think
degeneracy is found when you lose religion.
Do you think that psychiatric disorders are specialized by religion, demographically? Sounds like you do.
No.
So then what is the issue with SSRIs if there's statistically no difference between who's got depression in one group versus another? Clinical depression, not cultural depressions.
You. I don't even know if you can hear me.
Yeah, I got you. You're still there.
I didn't hear a word you said if you can hear me.
Yeah. I said,
Now I can hear you.
okay.
But can you repeat yourself?
Yeah. What makes you think there's a difference between clinical depression between religious and non-religious people, as opposed to cultural depression or situational depression?
Well, exactly. It's the situational depression. If you're in a situation where you believe God is not real, you believe that you're your own independent moral agent. That's what you believe. So that means that you believe everything you think is correct to you. That's what you believe. Because you're your own independent moral agent. That means you can follow whatever train of thought. You can say yes to all the demons in your brain. With God, you can't say yes to demons in your brain.
Demons in your brain.
Yeah, I feel all the demons
people that deal
inside
with
me. They're like
addiction.
jumping
Yeah, like
for
like
joy
like
right
you don't know
now.
what a demon. You're how old are you, bro? You've never dealt with a demon in your head. Like,
No,
hey,
I've never
don't
dealt
pick
with
up
a
that
demon in
glass of
my
alcohol for the 5th time this week.
Not the demon. It's
that's not a
poking me with
demon.
hot sticks.
It's the 21st
Yeah, you
century,
see,
dude.
this
Come on.
is the issue with atheists. You guys are way too literal. You don't know how to speak to people like human beings. A demon in your head could mean something you're struggling with. Like a person with addiction could say, I got these demons in my head, which would mean he's struggling with an addiction problem. Like people have demons in their head sometimes.
demon in
and you
my
can
head,
beat
his
that
name's
with God better
Gary.
than you can beat that with yourself.
The problem is I talk to, as
We
a
meet on Tuesdays.
counter-apologist, I talk to too many people who truly do believe in demons. So I try to be clear on the
Yeah,
language and not use that.
Yeah,
type of
I've met some
language.
people up here who do say, yeah, that they truly do believe in demons, and they think that there's like
Well, what do you
interdimensional
know?
entities.
Why do you think there's
entities
not
that
demons?
communicate with them.
How do you know what other people experience?
Oh
You
no,
have
they
no
told
idea
us.
what other people are experiencing either. And for you to talk like you know everything, like you figured it out in this big ass earth, like you know what you're talking about, you don't. No matter whatever.
We've had about 100 years of pretty good practice in psychology and psychiatric disorders. There's many books and stuff, and I would say it's especially in the last 75 years we're doing pretty good with it these days. Oops.
And people can vocalize their experiences, you know.
Yeah, he's got a bad connection. He keeps coming and going.
Yeah.
I think he dropped out the app, so he might still be talking. Like he left his phone sitting and like didn't touch it.
Yeah.
He does
No.
like to preach.
It's tough because he's the type of person who is hard to get a point through to.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to have a two-way
I didn't really
conversation.
get the architecture thing. Oh, there you go. Yeah, I didn't get the architecture thing. Yeah, no shit that we don't have like 14th century Christian architecture churches in America, you know.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, of course.
I didn't really see how that followed.
And it's not like Barcelona could become all 100% atheist, and they're still not going to go through and tear down La Familia, which is the big church there in Barcelona that's been under construction for like 500 years or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's insane, but no one's going to tear that down. That building being there does not make people religious.
Well, I will give him some credit on that because, you know, if there's religious architecture all around you, it is going to have some sort of habitual meaning to you, and obviously these things are physically beautiful anyway. So, but
Yeah, I mean,
at the same
oh,
time,
granted, it impacts you, but doesn't make you religious.
So, sorry for like intervening like that, Phil, but I wanted to say that beautiful churches are detrimental, so can God manifest?
they're detrimental. You mean?
Yes, they're detrimental for the manifestation of God's.
Why?
Or do you think it's like vanity or something?
No. It's because God's act through art. So it has to be appealing to them to come and into that structure, you see?
Oh, you said it was detrimental, so I thought like it was like
Yes. Detrimental. Sorry, I'm from Mexico.
Detrimental would mean that they don't want to come. You're suggesting that if it's more beautiful, they will want to come?
maybe like instrumental or
Well, detrimental,
it's
well, I don't know if it's the same meaning, but in Mexico, for example, detrimental, it means it's like fucking, it needs to happen. You know, it's like very like
No,
it's,
that's not what it means.
it's required. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I
Normative.
get it now. It makes sense.
Determinative, maybe.
yeah, maybe determined.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, well, churches need to be like, believe me, I'm from Mexico and we have some of the most beautiful religious structures you can find in the world, right?
Yeah.
And I moved. Right now, I'm currently living in Texas. I swear to God, the churches in Texas here are ridiculously ugly. Like this thing is not happening.
You notice how none of us really debated him on that point.
Whole thing is basically a Walmart structure. Imagine a Walmart.
Yeah.
They just put a fucking stamp on it, and that's their calling of God.
Yeah.
No God's gonna show up there. Believe me, that shit.
Well,
I gotta work.
where do you get the idea? I'm curious where you get the idea that the beauty of the structure determines whether God or gods. I'm a bit confused on that. So, is it a particular God you're talking about, or gods in general?
I
And
think
is it a general view, or do you have a source for that? Belief that you need beauty to entice a god to your location.
Yeah, I think the structure, like the architecture itself, probably calls the entity, right? So whatever God probably has to do with that. Because if you think about like pyramid structures, like one old type of God, right? And then the new ones, like the ones that they were building, the people that colonized this zone, for example, the Spaniards, and it's another style, right? They call it like kind of like this Gothic thing, but they're beautiful too. Like they have their spirit, right? So I think it will vary, like the gods from the old world to this, like the newer gods. But I don't know what
I'm not aware that we have any evidence of a church bringing a god to earth in any sort of way. I mean, certainly it attracts people to pray, and attracts believers, and
but they become miraculous. Like because once the people give them this power to the structures, and the God responds, so it creates a bond, and then miracles will start happening. And people
maybe we're just going in the wrong direction. Maybe we need to make the churches even uglier. We need to take we got to take a note out of Texas's book and like really ramp it up.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like something shows up there. I don't know what kind of entity does though. What kind of entity is it's called to like a box structure, like the pride of artwork. I don't know if they don't even have paintings in there. Like this is insane.
You see how people rent business industrial areas because it's inexpensive square footage.
Super strange.
Church of this or that, whatever, in some industrial building.
Yeah, I just cannot relate to
Like
that.
I will grant and denote that when I did go to church, when I was younger, there was definitely a feeling of like community that I felt, and maybe that would have been strengthened if like my church was like cool as fuck and looked like Notre Dame, but
definitely. Yeah, because everybody starts loving the structure itself. It's like my hometown has one of the most beautiful churches in the freaking world, not only the continent. It's called the Santa Prisca, and that shit was done by like I think that guy was Italian or it might be a Spaniard, but I don't remember the legend exactly. But he created this structure right in the town, right, and it's incredible. Like you think you're in a painting. Like it just looks so beautiful, and people love the shit out of it, right? Yeah. Because like people love it. Like it's done by like the Indians itself. So he put the Indians with the directions of like the European artists. So they created some like freaking mush of like native artwork stone with the freaking golden ratio shit. Like my dad was showing me how it was like measured and stuff. Like they have like very important geometries from the Europeans that brought all that. Like they were not doing it just because, they had like high intelligence behind this architecture, mathematics and shit.
Yeah, I was going to mention before the guy left, I didn't quite get it out that the numbers of churches are actually closing down across the world, especially in Western countries,
Yeah,
including the United States.
yeah,
Belief
United
in
States,
God is
why they're closing down? Because they suck. Bro, that place, it was horrendous. I was like, I want to get out of here. This is not happening. See you later.
it's expensive. I remember when they built the Crystal Cathedral in Orange County over here. It's supposed to be one of the most beautiful places.
Well, we will
in
be
the
better
world.
off praying by the river, We could just go to the river and just kind of pray there. Dude, it would have been way more beautiful than that fucking hole. But people, I don't know, man, what's going on in Texas. But I'm telling you, in Mexico, churches are growing. We're actually putting more gods out there. Like now what's happening, like I have these homies that they have this like movement, and they're like actually like, they're like a graffiti artist. So what we're doing is like we go into the alleys of the Mexico City or whatever town we are in, and we place like an ancient god. Like we find them, right? Because there's God, like the Mesoamerican people had gods for everything, like the god of the horde, the god of the pulque, the god of like rain, the god, whatever god you need, you find it. And it has like a specific name and it looks a certain way, right? So you create a sculpture of this thing and you place it and you make an altar. Suddenly, you know what happens? People start like bringing in flowers and stuff, and these things are been growing. It is very
Doesn't that kind of indicate that some of those religions are not true? If there's going to be different types.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. True. What's that even?
I feel like that's just more of a community thing, like a cultural thing.
It's the god of rain.
Celebrating.
Phil, would you call him true? It's the god of rain. Rain is fucking true, man. It's real. Rain is real.
Rain is real. There appears to be no god of rain. We know how rain comes down and
but rain is real. Rain is real. That's the god. Like when you see rain,
no,
that's
rain is rain. Rain is just water coming down. We know how the
you gotta understand
the water cycles work.
Well, I'm just relating to you the idea that we down there, we believe that the thing has a personality, like it has like we treat it as something else, an intelligence. So we call the rain, right? So when it starts raining, we say like, oh shit, Tlaloc is mad. Oh shit, Tlaloc is coming. Tlaloc this. Like you just treat it like, and you start doing that with other.
So
things.
that's animism, which is about probably 2 million years old.
Right.
This is right before. Animism is what leads into the conception of the first gods, right? Like you say, you start to assign the rocks and the mountains and the winds, and the sun and all that.
The sun is very important. That's like that could be the godhead.
Well, you would think, since most of our energy comes from the sun.
Exactly. So, the ancient Mexicans.
But that doesn't indicate any sort of spiritualism.
Well, I don't know. To me, like personally, I take it like that. Like I don't divide the thing. It's just like, okay, the sun, it's the spirit, it's the matter, it's the thing, it's whatever. It's everything, right? So that's the sun. It's like obviously there. It keeps you alive. Nothing of this could be happening right now. This we're talking. It doesn't happen without the sun. So we are like the sun. We take it into acknowledge. We love the sun. We are the sun. That's how the Mexicans teach us.
Yeah. But we understand how the sun works now. We don't need the spiritual stuff anymore. And the sun will still be down just the same.
You can give them more and more attitudes, You're saying like the science. We know the science of it now. So that's another part of God. It's just another part of the creature, the thing. We just
Why do you think it's a thing? I'm puzzled as to how you jumped to that.
It's literally matter.
Remind me how you were raised, Kodak. I can't. It's been a while, so.
What happened?
What religion you were raised in? Catholicism?
I wasn't raised in any. I was beaten to shreds by the Catholics. The Catholics really treat me really bad because I went to the school system in Mexico, but I went into like a very far out town, like into the mountains. Like we were like in Mexico, and these people didn't like me. I think just because I was like an American, like white. I couldn't talk Spanish or fucking Nahuatl, so they were just like beating their religion into me somehow. But I grew up like very resentful of anything Catholic. I guess I call myself the anti-Christian many times, and and I had when I was younger, I started like making this like punk bands. So I would actually like make people like fucking wear collars in the town that it was super like weird. Get tattoos. I'm one of the first tattoo artists of the town,
Oh,
and yeah, it just like it went crazy. Like it was yeah, I would say I was fighting Christianism for a while. So that took me to another route where I was like into kind of like pagan Mexican pagan shit, So I started to like learn about like native kind of gods, and they called my attention because they were like just like fa- faces of nature, right? I could realize really quick of like, oh, this is the god of river, that's the god of the sea, right? Well, that makes sense. I can pray to the sea, but I'm not gonna pray to like Christ or something, because
did you have science knowledge at that point?
I'm not sure if the teachers school science. They were like more busy like fucking beating kids up or something. But so you can see,
Oh, you had
like,
a really bad experience.
yeah, that shit was
Sorry about that.
crazy, bro. No, like everybody says it, but I don't know if I'm so like. I mean, it's been difficult to like deal with all that abuse, but I'm kind of grateful now because it took me to a crazy path. Like I can appreciate a lot of shit with all that happening.
Well, you're an artist, right? You said.
Yes, sir.
When did that come to be? When did you start to realize that you had some special ability that others didn't?
When I guess when I start doing like plant power, ceremonies.
Plant power ceremonies?
Yes, sir. I know
What?
that there's censoring here, so I won't say the psychedelic
Oh,
word, but
sorry. Yeah. Duh.
yes, we did a lot of ceremonies, and I start to like communicate with different entities, and I start realizing that yeah, there's methods here, and then the Mexicans teach you how to do it, so it's the craziest part. Like a
Yeah.
lot of shamans, they know this technology from ancient times, and they explain you why they did the pyramids and what's their
I
function.
find it interesting. I don't know that much about Mexico to be fairly truthful about it. They don't teach us
We
that
should,
much. Of course,
well,
I
we
grew up
should
in New York, not California, but
right. I'm
but
from New York.
the idea
I'm
that
actually.
of shamanism and animism still being fairly active in modern times, I
Oh
find
yeah,
that
it's
quite
it's
amazing.
it's going hard, man. It's gonna come back really hard. So I'm from over there from New York. So they took me down to
Oh,
Mexico when I was like 5 or something. And yeah, it's been an experience. So I would say that everybody that is from America, like, or calls itself from this continent, has to make an investigation about like Mexico, because it is the epicenter of the continent. Like they have the oldest culture of the continent,
yeah.
and it's been ongoing for thousands of years. So there's a lot of things to study and to understand. Right now, I'm in studies of like the native language of like the Nahuatl. That's the last one that survived from the Toltecs, because it's been changing since the Olmecs, right? So it's very interesting because they have this like very very beautiful language. What they do is kind of like they talk with pictures, so it's very poetic. Like they just tell you, like, for example, they to describe a armadillo, they will call it like, oh, that's a, a turtle rabbit. And so picture a turtle rabbit, right? And then you see an armadillo. It's like, oh, that makes sense. It's kind of like a rabbit, and then it's a turtle because it has like the conch or something. So
Mhm.
that's their language, that of the original America, right? Ancient times. So
I want to say on the side, there's just a girl has confused me. She says, if God doesn't exist, why do you live your life every day like he does? I don't understand that question, just a girl.
Dude, is just a girl like watching us or something? Like,
Is in the
so
comments.
I do
So
believe,
come on in and explain if you're interested.
I believe in a lot of gods. So
Oh,
I don't
here she
know.
is. Hey, so
Hi.
yeah, what do you mean
No.
by that? I don't quite get that.
Well, no, with all due respect, all I'm saying, I mean, I used to be an atheist 13 years ago. I hated Christianity, I hated Catholicism, and something personal happened in my life, that made me reconsider stuff. And I guess my point was, if you really don't believe that God exists, then why would you why would you set your alarm every morning thinking you're guaranteed tomorrow? Why do you follow laws? Why do you I mean, if there's no moral guidance, or compass to what we do, no matter what you believe that might be, um, you should just live like there's no tomorrow, literally.
I mean,
Yeah,
God doesn't
Well,
guarantee tomorrow.
that,
I don't
I
see
like
that.
that.
yeah.
Sorry.
But I mean, we live morally because we are aware, some of us more than others, of how we want to be treated, and therefore we want to treat others in a similar
But
way.
why? But with all due respect, why?
Yeah.
Why?
Because I don't feel like hurting
Because
people.
because we
But
have
why?
because
I just don't.
we realize that we are alive, and it is better to be alive and aware than it is to be not. It's a special thing, right? To be alive.
Agreed.
And
Agreed.
just
But
aware.
why?
Because
Why?
this guy,
Why is it
this guy's
special?
one,
Because if you don't exist, you can't do anything, and you're not even
Right.
Yeah,
aware of
but what
everything.
does it matter? I mean, if there's
Just-
no God
girl,
or if there's no afterlife, then who cares? Right? I
Yeah,
mean,
girl.
that is, I can, oh, man, I can throw that right back. Got to throw that right back at you, because why do you need a God to give meaning to to give you a reason to get up in the morning? You were alive for X numbers. Go ahead.
okay, no, that's a great question. I don't
I'm gonna
need
ask-
a God. I was created. I mean, this is my point of view with all due respect. But I was created by God in his image, and it's kind of like a cell phone. You need a tower to connect. Like you have a purpose. And so the creator created you for a purpose. And so I don't need God, but if I want to, live my life for a purpose, then I want to connect to him and let him guide me and lead me. And really, I mean,
Can I-
try
can
to
I
do the
answer-
hardest thing in the world is
can I
to
answer
love
you?
others the way you want to be loved. That's the hardest thing. It really is. Come on, and I want to do that.
I would like to answer a
Yeah, we
girl.
just don't need a God for that.
But where does that standard come from, though?
Well,
Like-
you
My
gotta
own moral
understand.
groundings.
You gotta.
Okay, but
I don't
where does
understand
it
this,
come
girl.
from?
Girl, you gotta
My moral
understand this.
groundings.
That.
But what moral grounding
Okay,
is that?
hold on. Let's hear.
I'm sorry.
Go to
I'm sorry.
Yes, I wanna answer to girl because like it's very interesting the things that she's saying. You gotta understand, girl, that Phil and I'm just assuming Dom. I don't know his position, but at least Phil, I know that like they only have one life. Like they
Who?
don't believe in afterlife.
Who?
So
I'm sorry.
they have-
I didn't.
They have to like be very careful what they do and to try to survive the longest as they can. But us that we do believe like in an extra life, like heaven or whatever, what's your vision? You could actually do what you're saying, but that would make more sense, right? Because you're actually traveling through like the dimensions. So you need to like follow God, follow your calling or whatever the thing that is you're made for, because you are
Yeah.
created, right?
Well,
But
can I add something to that?
The
Sure.
atheists
Yeah.
should actually go crazy.
Something that you said there, where like you said that like we only have me and Phil, we only have one life, and that we're like being I don't know exactly what you just said.
Yeah,
if
yeah.
we're like being careful or something,
Yes.
or like scared. Not maybe you didn't use that exact word. I'm not like if I didn't wake up tomorrow, I don't think I would be too angry or scared. I'm not scared of not waking up tomorrow. If it does happen, then it happens. And I wouldn't feel, perturbed about it because I wouldn't be existing anymore.
Well, let's be somewhat realistic about this. These
You know
kinds,
what?
these kinds of questions we always posed in a way that like what would you feel like? Your consciousness would be gone. There would be no feeling.
Yeah.
So the only thing that matters is what you do in your life. So if you get up in the
But
morning,
why does it? Phil, can I ask you
Yeah.
why does it matter? So here's
does what matter?
it's very simple.
here's-
It's very simple. It's very
Okay.
simple. Okay.
Sure.
Two perspectives. One is
Okay.
my perspective, and the other would be my relationship to others. From my own perspective, I would rather be aware and alive than not. So the fact that I wake up in the morning, I can now, what can I do today that's interesting, or that's, spending time with my wife or
Self-pleasure,
whatever,
probably.
some sort
I
of
mean,
some
and I
sort of
don't mean that
pleasure,
in a
and have
negative way when I say
enjoy
that.
the
I don't mean that.
enjoy a meal or whatever, all those types of
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
And as
yeah.
far as me reacting to others, I want to be kind to others because I want to help make their life pleasant also.
But
It's
why?
why? Because
Yeah.
I have empathy.
Okay, but why? So can you
Well,
guys
we can
just wait? No. Please, just let me make one point, and that is this: if there is no moral, objective standard
right.
by which we are called to live by, then what anyone thinks, what anyone who is listening or talking on this live, what anyone thinks is just a matter of opinion.
Yes.
So
Can I
whether
respond to that?
Hitler was right or wrong, or Princess Diana was the best thing in the world, if there is no moral objective standard by which to measure our behavior against, then it doesn't, nothing matters. So
Go ahead,
you can be
Dumbledore.
as evil as
Okay,
you want to
just a
be.
girl, please.
Hold on.
Sure, I'm
Dumbledore,
sorry.
go ahead.
Is your moral grounding is in what God says to be true and what he says to be good?
My moral grounding is to love the Lord my God with all my heart, body, mind, and soul, and to love you, all of you, the way I want to be loved. And I'm not going to do it perfectly. I'm not. Because the only perfect person that ever existed on this planet was Jesus Christ. And that's another thing.
Just a girl.
Like,
Just
I
a girl.
ask
That's
people
not
all
exactly.
the time, what do you think it means
just
to
ask
be
you
a
again?
Christian? I'm
Can I
sorry,
just
go
ask
ahead.
you again? Just a
Sorry.
girl. I want to ask you again. Because
Okay.
you brought up objective morality,
Right.
and I asked you, what is your objective moral ground? And you just said loving Jesus Christ, and that doesn't really tell me anything.
Well, I mean, so your objective moral ground, there has to be a standard, right? Look at the Ten
Where
Commandments.
does the standard come from?
Well, I look at the Ten Commandments, and the Ten Commandments weren't given.
The Ten Commandments were subjective to God's mind. Your moral standard.
Okay, but what beyond anything else makes sense? Like, what beyond the Ten Commandments? So you understand that God did not give us the Ten Commandments because he expected us to follow them perfectly. He gave us the Ten Commandments to show his character.
But you realize that your moral grounding is not objective, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
You realize that your moral grounding isn't like objective, right?
Like just a girl. Do you accept?
No. What I'm saying is, you might not think my moral grounding is objective, but the bottom
it just
line
isn't.
is okay, fine, and I respect you for that. But what I'm telling you is there has to be some objective moral ground. Maybe it's not mine. Maybe it's not mine, but there has to be some, or else what anyone thinks is just a matter of their opinion. And you know that's true. Whether Christianity is right, or Islam is right, or Buddhism, or whatever, my point to you is this: there has to be an objective moral standard of truth.
Why does there have
by
to
which
be? I don't get that.
Well,
Why
because
there
then
have to
there's
be?
chaos. Well,
we can actually be a civilization, right? That's what
they're right.
No.
Because
It's
there's
not
chaos.
it's not that we don't have morality. The question is, why does it have to be objective?
What's the objective of it? To
That's
have
what I've been asking.
a society.
That's a question for just a girl.
Say it again.
Why does morality have to be objective in your opinion?
All right, let me ask you a question. Is it wrong to murder innocent babies outside the womb? Yes or no?
Yeah.
I mean,
Outside the womb? Yeah.
Most of the world would say that's wrong, right? That's a
Because it
moral.
causes suffering. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a moral objective, right? We look around, we see, the suffering
It's
in the world.
subjective to if it causes suffering or not. That's not an objective.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
There can be subjective things that colloquially everybody agrees upon.
Yeah,
But
well,
the
of
thing
course,
is
but
that
there's
no,
also
hey, just a
objective
girl.
ones.
I'm not done.
Well, hold
just
on.
a girl. I am not done.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
I'm not getting mad or arguing.
I'm not.
Sorry.
I'm not either. I'm not either. I'm just not done. So when you brought that up, I think the thing is that you're misunderstanding that if, like, let's say 99.9% of the world agrees on said thing of killing or unaliving, I apologize, unaliving babies outside of the womb. If they say that is wrong, that is because it's subjective to if it causes suffering or not. If I would say that, you know, like, oh gosh, like I remember one time when we were arguing about secular humanism on this live. You weren't here, but this guy kept on bringing up that, like, an eye for an eye or something. Like, Phil, do you remember that? It was this guy a while back. He like said that like secular humanism devolves into eye for an eye, and like I said that, you know, I don't hold to that as an objective because an eye for an eye causes suffering, and I want to hold to something that doesn't cause suffering. So if I think that an action causes someone suffering, I don't think that it's morally right. But it's subjective to that. It's not an objective.
So just a girl. The other thing to think about is like the thing you mentioned happening. You know, someone being unalived. Like most people agree that is morally wrong, but then you get into other cases where maybe you're trying to protect someone else and you end up unaliving someone else, or
Yeah,
it's in. Hold on,
oh,
let me finish.
okay. Well, you've been talking
Or
for a while. So.
or you're in a battle or something else and something like that, or someone's at the end of their life and their brain has stopped functioning or something, or they're in deep suffering, so they ask for that to happen. So there's multiple cases of stuff like that. And if you just take, you know, a singular objective stance of do not end someone's life, then you leave all that nuance. So it becomes subjective because it's up to interpretation. And that's why there's some people who believe in the Bible who believe you absolutely cannot unalive anyone for any reason whatsoever at any point in time. And there's other people who believe, well, there's nuance to that and that allows different interpretations. So that makes that statement within the Bible subjective because people read it and interpret it in different ways. So it's subjective because there is no objective truth in the Bible, because no one's come down and said this is all black and white, because objectivity has to be black and white, has to always hold true all the way in the past to all the way in the future for there to be objective morality. There can never be exceptions.
Are you there?
Yeah, we're here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. I heard everything you said except for like maybe the last 30 seconds. So there's a lot to unpack there. I mean, listen, and you are talking to a former atheist who is a lawyer, who does research. And I used to think Christians are weak as hell. You know, they make stuff up because they need this and they need that. I mean, I was the consummate atheist. I really was. And I had something personal that happened to me. And I don't expect you guys, you know, to give it any merit or believe in it or, you know, whatever. That's fine. But the point is, you know, you're talking about, hold on, I'm sorry, I'm letting my dog out. You guys are talking about like,
Oops. I think the dog let her out.
Well, like, I hope that everyone here understands that, you know, what I said about everyone agreeing on a certain thing can be subjective.
Yeah, I've asked that repeatedly, and that's what
yes,
that general consensus is. Yeah.
Yes, so you're saying, you know, things in the Bible can be subjective. And, you know, it's a matter of...
Do you understand why he says that, that it's subjective? Come back and give her a second.
Yeah, I'm saying that objective morality does not exist.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. So just to go, I was. Do you understand why he says that it's subjective if it comes from God?
Yes.
And for those out there who don't quite get the point or might not get the point, it's because if it comes from a mind, in this case God, it is subjective to God's thinking. That's what subjective means. It comes from a mind, as opposed to it's just true, independent of anybody's opinion or existence, frankly. Although
I would even be willing to stipulate that it would be objective if it was from a God that was omniscient, all powerful, all knowing sort of thing. But the requirement would be to me grant that would be that the God would have that be unchanging, unable to change his mind or what he stated. Like it can't change. To me,
I
the
think one of those
objective thing
caveats
has to be
outrules the other.
constant.
I don't think I can agree with you on that one, Ralph.
Yeah, I
What
mean,
was that you
it's
said,
an
Jay?
opinion, but
Jay's been very quiet, so he said something.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to point out that one of those caveats kind of outrules the other. It can't be all powerful and unchanging.
well, I'm referring to his mind unchanging.
Like
we
as
have
if this
examples over and
deity
over
put out a
again, and
supreme law, and that was the totality of law for all time. You'll be subject to its divine order or something. Then you'll conform to it.
So I'm concerned that the if whatever God says is objectively correct or just correct, moral, that doesn't seem to hold water for me, Ralph, because nothing is moral unless we have humans to have minds to interact with each other.
yeah, I agree with you, Phil. I'm just saying I would be willing to grant that concession in an argument to say it was objective like that in that scenario. But other than that, I can't see just to further the discussion, right?
Yeah.
But other than that, if it's written in a book that can be interpreted that's supposed to be read by humans and can be interpreted by humans to mean different things, different parts of it be one person says, well, yeah, this is okay, well, that is not okay, or different parts say different things or can be interpreted different ways. If it has the possibility for those discussions to even occur, then it's not objective. If it's made by a mind, even if the mind is God, right, then it's subjective. I mean, there's all kinds of things that make the possibility of objective morality just not possible.
Yeah. Hey, Londo, come on. Whoops.
What's up, Phil?
How you doing? Give me 1 second. Let me turn off that alarm.
That's the TikTok alarm saying you've been talking too much.
The 90-minute thing. Why don't other people get that alarm? And how come I still get it? I don't know.
I've heard other people get it.
Have you? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do guests get it? I don't know if they do.
The last 2 weeks have been pretty rough. I have a great friend that is trans, and I've had to deal with a lot of things supporting my friend, and just yesterday that I guess we're going to have a group to root out anti-Christian discrimination, which is the oddest thing in the world.
That's a little scary in terms of what exactly and how far they could go with that.
Yeah, because
talk about up for interpretation, you know.
Yeah, because like
what's that in you said anti-Christian discrimination?
Yeah, so they're basically DT, the orange orangutan, signed an executive order making Pat Bondi, who is the Attorney General, heading up a task force to root out anti-Christian discrimination in the federal government.
And I'm sure it'll go beyond that.
Ugh.
And talk about scary stuff, because yes, there's probably very extreme. I've seen posts from Catholic groups that say that there was, but all this is dog whistles for their ability to discriminate.
We need another Luigi.
No, we don't.
No,
Let's not
no,
go
we
there.
don't.
We do not.
Yeah. Well, what we need
That's the
is
wrong way.
people to understand that to have freedom of religion, we need freedom from religion. And we cannot basically, that sometimes we need to tell religions that you have to act a certain way, and that's not discriminating against them. That's just making them play on the same fair. It's like basically if you've always played the game of golf and you've had a basically 10 points ahead of everybody, and we say, no, you're really good now. You don't get that 10 points. And you say, well, you're being discriminated against. No, we're just making it even because you're good. That's not discrimination, and that's what they feel. And unfortunately, the very extreme evangelicals, they love to be the martyr.
Yeah.
So it will be interesting to see what this task force, but it's honestly very scary because again, what about the groups that really are discriminated against? Look at
Yeah.
the
What's this
groups,
anti-Christian discrimination looking like? I
Yeah.
gotta see.
but look at the groups
By
in
discrimination,
Yeah.
the discrimination that Christians get is not being allowed to force their views on others.
Exactly.
Yes.
I was just about to say that
That's how they're
the
discriminating.
discrimination that they are perceiving is because they want to bring Christianity, religion in general, and Christianity specifically into the government at a time when, for this 250 years where it has been explicitly not allowed in the Constitution, which is one reason that they're trying to go into a post-constitutional era. You've heard J.D. Vance talk about this and others, because short of the ability to open up the Constitution and rewrite it, the other option for them to do is to just ignore the Constitution, do away with it, and then just write a new one that puts their particular political ideology at front and center, as
And I'm
opposed to
sure
a pluralistic society.
Phil may be familiar with this person, but the Friendly Atheists, Hammett Mehta,
Yeah.
great reporter. He talks about a lot of things that, and there's a lot of cities, counties that during Christmas time, organizations like, again, non-Christian organizations, whether it be the Satanic Group or whatever, they were not basically doing these floats in any what I would say to be inappropriate way, but these cities and areas were denying them just because of their group. Again, this is Christians discriminating against everybody else who's not Christian. We don't see this big and not people discriminating against Christians. We see it the other way around. And I feel like this is just allowing them to discriminate more against us.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it is literally the most un-American way you can be, right? This is a pluralistic country grown of, put together and evolved forward from immigrants and many religions and many beliefs and disbeliefs.
And I can't see how is this not a total contradiction to the Second Amendment? Like, how is this not a total unconstitutional thing? The Second Amendment clearly
it is.
You might get
It is
again.
against the Constitution, but that's why they're taking a post-constitutional attitude in it. That's why you're going to see. I mean, things like taking away birthright citizenship. The Constitution is extremely clear on that particular one. It's not ambiguous at all.
No.
So it's going to be very interesting to see how the courts deal with this, because there's one thing that that Mr. T has realized in his life is that he doesn't have to follow a law if just because the law says a thing. It's the enforcement that he goes after, or if it can't be enforced, then he'll ignore it if he chooses, or act as if he
Yeah, I was
doesn't
like
choose.
thinking about getting like my passport and just like leaving the country, man.
Well, like one of the things they're trying to do is, if you listen to the arguments, like when they want to post the Ten Commandments in schools, they're saying it doesn't violate the Second Amendment. No, the government will not establish a religion clause, because they're saying, well, it's about history and it's a historical document because laws are based on this sort of thing, which they aren't, but they just make other reasons to force their religion on others. And what's going on in Texas and other places is all the stuff for school vouchers and stuff like that, which is basically a fight to funnel money into Christian or religious schools from the state governments.
Or teachings
And
in homeschools.
My thing is like the dismantling, like the USAID. Like, if you want to cut back spending, great, but why cut back spending of money that's spent on helping marginalized people, helping people without water, without medicine, without anything. And this is soft power with very little money that we spend 0.5% of our budget. So think about the amount of money you pay in taxes and take 0.5% of what you pay in taxes, and think about, we could cut that much more from our military budget. And the amount of money that we have lost from this soft power, guess what? Who's going to win from this is actually China. And it's just sad. It really is.
Oh, in terms of them having more influence without
Yes, because
our
they,
ability to influence others.
yes,
I
they,
think a
because
lot of it, I
they
think a
have the
lot of
same.
it is they're playing a hide what we're doing. So they're doing this stuff to rile up their base and their mass and stuff, and so they won't pay attention to the stuff like the tariffs and the impact of the tariffs on the price of goods and stuff like that, and all the other stuff they're doing. If they keep their base, the people who are devout to them and stuff, riled up about the stuff, the stuff they're misquoting or missaying that aid is going to, and that they fix that. They're using that to rile people up to hide the stuff they're not doing that they said they would do.
Here's the thing: the amount of money USAID is spending is very small. But again, the money that and I'm not sure if you guys heard this. A lot of this money helps with what we call soft power, meaning it goes to countries where it allows us to come in, and when those countries need help, and again, it helps to keep those countries from getting into having dictators or authoritarians take over. It also allows us to good relations. So again, resources. Again, China's also already blocked us from certain resources for technology. Again, with
Yeah.
this people think that this might be a win. We've cut the spending, but what we've done is we allowed China to come in and say, you know what? The United States, they're not going to help you. We're going to help you. And so what does that give China? That gives them the ability to get soft power. And at the end of the day, I think we may not see the effects 4 years from now, 10 years from now, but there will be a time that I feel this might be one of the biggest mistakes that we've made. If we
Yeah, and
can't
it's
fix
crazy
it.
how much he fearmongered on, China and everything and foreign powers.
But
You
again,
know,
who has a very vested interest in China and making money? The real president of the United States,
are you
Elon
saying Elon?
Elon Musk. He has a very huge financial tie to
Well,
China.
what has been the previous opinion of the conservative right in terms of giving money to other countries? I mean, I understand Trump's perspective is in a very simplistic way. It just seems like, he's very transactional, and we're just giving them money, they're not giving us anything, and the guy has no empathy, so that's how he can look at it. But there has been, as I understand it, a disagreement or a dislike of giving money to foreign countries from the right, hasn't there?
Yes.
And
Can I
Yes,
just
that,
do
add
you
something
understand
to
that?
this?
Can you explain that to me?
can I
Can I just add
explain?
in something
Yeah.
as an outside perspective?
Can I explain why the right doesn't like it,
Yeah,
or
why the right does not like helping other countries, assuming that these are to some degree empathetic people also.
well, again, this is just my personal opinion from what I see, is I feel like the right sees problems here at home, and they see like homelessness, veterans, they see these issues, and they feel like when they see money being given somewhere else, that money could be used at home. But the problem that I see is, if you have that mentality, they're not going to take that money and actually use it to help middle class America. They're
Yeah.
going to cut the billionaires, and actually it's not going to really help um, the middle class. The amount of money we're giving away is very small.
But giving money to the billionaires, as I understand it, is not a motivation of a conservative person, right? Because because they're middle class workers too. So
Yeah,
I don't know. It's like voting
they
against your own interests here. So.
they don't see that. They turn a blind eye to it. They just hear we're giving, $20 million to this country, that country. They have no concept of the scale, and they close their eyes because they just hear this talking about. You hear it over and over on Fox News, or wherever they're listening to this stuff, and they're hearing these raw numbers, and they're not able to grasp the scale of the U.S. budget. And it's a hard number for
Yeah.
anyone to really grasp and stuff, unless people started using the percentages as talking points. But they're not, because it's more sensational to say 20 million than is to say
Yeah.
0.0001% of the budget.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm not hearing anybody on the right saying, get rid of all the money to foreign countries and spend it on Social Security, for example.
No, they're not. They just think, well, that's going to save money, and everyone's going to think it's going to go to the interests that they're concerned about, whether that's border enforcement or the military needs a bigger budget to pay their soldiers more, so we don't have low-level soldiers on welfare and stuff like that. But everyone assumes it's going to go to their area of interest. We can move that money into education and stuff, and really it's not a drop in the bucket in those other things.
The issue that I have, the sadness that people are okay with this, but these are people who 2 weeks ago didn't realize that they're going to be without a job. What about these federal workers who now, how are they going to support their family? How are they going to pay their bills? And it's just like, is this how we want to treat people? And again, at the same time, they are floating the idea of cutting the corporate tax rate from 21 to 15%. Again, it's just so sad that all these people are like, let's do this, but they are not seeing the impact of all these people, because honestly, at the end of the day, I know that maybe some people might disagree with me, but in the end of the day, most Americans are selfish people. They only care about themselves. They only vote for themselves. And if it doesn't affect them, they don't think about the mass majority of people in general.
Yeah. But a lot of this stuff is it just started. So T started out with just shotgunning stuff out there, and he's hoping some of it sticks. But a lot of the stuff he's implementing and doing, he's not legally able to do, but he's hoping it's going to get stuck in the courts, or something's going to slip through the cracks, or whatever, and he's going to get away with it. But a lot of the stuff, like I think the U.S. aid, all that is appropriated by Congress and designated, and he's put pauses. That's going to hit the courts, and I think a lot of that's going to be overturned and fought back, and they'll probably be stuck in legal battle for a long time. It's screwed up that he does it. And I think most people on an individual level would agree, well, yeah, if you broke down what was being spent, where it was being spent and for and stuff, they'd agree with you. But it's again, it's the group mob mentality and sensationalism that they hear and gets riled up, and that's why it's being done, and that's the result of it is the mass hysteria. Now, on the other side of things, I think that with the tariffs and the impact they're going to have on prices and stuff like that, and he keeps going with stuff like that, we're going to have an economic impact that is going to make the next election have a landslide going the other way because you're right. People vote with their wallets. They vote on a personal level and stuff. And as prices continue to go up, as our economy falters because a trade war and tariff war just does horrible things to the economy, both sides of the economies. And that is going to have the negative consequences I think that we kind of need.
Yeah.
Not that I really want it, but that we need in order to cause a change.
I don't know.
For people to understand how they really work.
I think what he's doing is pretty brilliant because even if it gets stuck up in the courts, even if whatever the damage that he's causing, the people like this. It's not that a lot of people say Congress is the problem. They like actually somebody coming in and being like an authoritarian because they feel like he's getting things done. I don't know if it actually will impact the next election like we might think, because I think a lot of people right now are liking this because it's
some people for sure. Authoritarians do not operate without authoritarian followers. That's why that's why he has a solid 30%. Well, it seems to be more than that now. It seems to be up to 45% followers.
Yeah. So if somebody else could step in and act and promise and say, we're going to do this, I mean, who cares that he's breaking the laws? People just love the fact that they think that he's getting his executive orders, which again are pretty shaky, but look what he's done in executive orders.
When did we go from conservatives being concerned about constitutionality and character to where we are now? With them, will it be willing to want to be post-constitutional and have a dictator as long as he's a conservative, Christian, white nationalist?
Yeah. I do think that the Democrats kind of screwed the pooch a little bit when they kind of backed or kind of really still supported Bill Clinton when he went through his issues and drama. And I think that kind of has given the right kind of their excuse of, well, hey,
that's child's play. That is child's play compared to what this.
I know it is child's play
on this guy's watch.
So. It is child's play, but I think they've used that as kind of like character. Again, they're being hypocrites because before they were like, but again, I really feel like the Democrats, if they would have been more forceful on Bill Clinton and what he did, But again, here's the problem: the Democrats, they're losing the working class. They're losing people who are, and Latino. I mean, people like that's the problem is they're losing blue and white collar workers. And how can they gain them?
The blue collar workers, that's an interesting one to me. I mean, I do see it personally as largely an influence of right-wing media that puts out information that is just literally not true.
Yeah.
That helps people vote against their own interests.
Yeah. My concern is, again, this rhetoric allows people to use very inappropriate language towards marginalized groups. And I just feel like they think they can get away with using that kind of language because they see it coming from the federal government. And it's very sad.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a march just yesterday. I think it was in the news.
Are you talking about the 50 states, the marches on the capitals?
I don't know
Yes.
It was
So there.
white nationalist.
Yes. Yep.
Group
So
marching.
on Wednesday the 5th, there was 50 marches. So a march in every capital, and actually there was a march here in my capital because I live in the capital of Oregon, and so yeah, I mean, hopefully get people's voice out. Obviously the opposition thinks that we're just crying and whatever, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, at least they still have masks on, which tells you something about it's not considered to be socially acceptable, even though they're doing it to the degree that they are.
Yeah. So
Because I mean, honestly, there's a president who would have pardoned them if they did anything. So why the masks?
yeah.
Anyways, I am going to wrap up tonight. This one we get into politics, we get off track and stuff, and this particular episode never kind of got a foothold. So I think I'm gonna go back to some of my other work.
What would be some of your other work?
I'm trying to get an online store going. Like I've said at the beginning, we need to get some income. We're both retired now, so I'm trying to put an online store together. And
Are you like? Is there going to be a certain theme?
probably not, because if I go for a certain theme, it's going to make it for a smaller audience. So
Okay.
print on demand stuff, just compete with everybody else. But just so I have to be creative in coming up with slogans and T-shirts and whatever else I can come up with. We'll see. It's gonna take a good 6 months to really get started. So it's a very labor intensive process. I gotta tell you.
Here you go, Phil. A good T-shirt slogan. You could just say, "My dog doesn't like Trump."
No, I don't want to be that anti-political. I'm trying to evade that issue a bit.
So this is not going to be a political. You're going to stay out of that.
Yeah, life is too short for me to get that strong. I mean, if there are when comes time to do marches and things like that, I'll be with my kind, if you will, giving support at that point, but not for a business. I don't want to be. I'll stress every day if I get into that. So
if you did that,
yeah.
Okay.
Plus all that talk now. Now I'm kind of wanting to get Baldur's Gate going. So
Baldur's Gate. Have you been? Do you do any of the ARPGs like Diablo 4?
Yeah, Diablo's my game. I just started Diablo 4. And just basically, I've loaded the damn thing 3 times because I've had computer problems, and it's got wiped out every time. So
Diablo 4. It's fun. And I've also been playing Path of Exile 2, which is to me a lot harder of a game. But both of them have been really fun.
What style is Path of Exile?
It's ARPG. It just, to me, I would feel it's a little bit kind of more for if you like more of a challenge type game.
I like more of a story.
Yeah. I think both of them are maybe not necessarily the best for stories. PoE 2 is in early development. And so, but it's really good. The bosses, like the play, I'm not sure if you've played like Diablo 2. It has that little bit of a feel, but the bosses are really, really, really done well. Yeah. It's cool. But it's just, again, a harder game at the beginning. Me and my friend, we got it in December, and it was tough for us at the beginning. But yeah, it's fun.
Checking my notes here because, dude, I erased it. Someone had come in earlier at the beginning of the show. Ralph, were you here at the very beginning? I think you were.
Yeah.
Do you remember that game that guy mentioned?
No, I don't.
I wrote it down, and in my futzing with the computer during the shows, I've accidentally deleted that note.
I that's how I save myself from the misery of wanting to buy more games.
Let it go out of
not remembering the names of the ones people say to try.
Well, like I say, I've got Diablo 4 and still ahead of me. That's after years of Diablo 2 and Diablo 3. But at any rate, I gotta get to the store building because it's gonna take me, like I say, probably 6 months to do it. So.
All right, Phil. Good luck, man.
All right. Have a good night.
Catch you
Take
guys
care.
Monday.